All right, welcome to another Real Talk Tuesdays here with Rob Shepard, Justin Messina, and tonight we have a great topic. We're going over creating habits of change and what exactly that process looks like. What are some of the, results, implications of that process, and what we can do to make sure that we follow through and get all the way to the creating the habit that will evoke the change that we wanted to put in place. Uh, but first, we want to introduce Rob Shepard. Rob, how are you tonight?
I'm doing outstanding. How are you, man?
I'm great. It's good to be here as always on Tuesday nights, and let's jump right into it. So, the mind is like a muscle, right? It's something that just like if you're working out, you're building your muscles, your muscles are growing and they're taking shape. It's no different with your mind. Your mind is like a muscle that you need to train and to create new habits and new patterns for how you operate, right? So, I'll get into a little bit of subconscious a little later in this hangout, but first, I just want to talk about how it works with your mind. If you just let it go and you let the patterns that are in place take over, then it's very easy to fall into the same habits, do the same things you always do, and this is where lots of frustration can come in because you just are following the same path. And if you're trying to make a change, it can be extremely frustrating, right? Because you're trying to get out of a certain habit or a certain lifestyle, and then you just keep doing it over and over again. So what's so important is not just consciously but subconsciously. But first, we'll talk about just what can we do. What can we do? What are some things we can do to make sure that we're staying on the path to creating the changes? And one of a few different things, like just to set this up before we get into anything heavy. Um, you know, it can be really difficult to try to make a change, especially like the bigger the leap you have to make to the bigger the change, like the harder it can be to stick with it. But just having a system support around is huge. Having people that are going to actually support what you're doing rather than people who are going to look at you like I don't understand what they're doing, and people who are just going to try to knock you down as you're making a change, which is very, very common, especially if it's something of worthwhile value and the people around you just don't understand like what you're striving towards. Another thing, and I know that I think Rob probably can touch on this in a minute, is in uh, in any sort of romantic relationship or some sort of family setting, if you have someone who is against or different than you in how you want to live your life, right? You're trying to make maybe certain changes. Um, Maybe you started the relationship in one place, but then maybe one person's moving in one direction, the other person's not moving, or the other person's moving in a different direction. And it's one of those things where somebody at some point has to has to be the one who dictates where that's the environment. Does Did we talk the zone of influence? They're going to dictate where that goes. And if both parties are kind of in like a war of attrition, then it can be pretty frustrating. And eventually, something has to break. Something has to move in one direction. So there's definitely some things to take into account. Make your life easier. Obviously, when you're making changes, don't try to go at it alone. It can be very frustrating. As I've made the mistake a lot of times where I've just tried to go after something on my own, just feeling like, okay, well, I have what it takes to do it, but really, it just makes my life harder when that's what I found when I've done that, because it just you leave yourself blank for any setbacks. There's just nowhere to fall. There's just no safety net. There's no comfort in any way, any path you take with that. So, with that said, Rob, I think I'm just going to let you jump in and we'll get rolling with this.
Yeah, that's a great point you make because when it comes to change, if you look at the percentage, there's a huge percent of individuals that don't like change, and the reason why because change it taking you out of your comfort zone, and if when we're coming out of our comfort zone, we feel that at that point in time, it's not the, I feel like it's not the right thing to do. I wonder if I'm going to make it. I wonder if I'm going to win. I wonder if I'm going to lose. But then at the end of it is change is good, because when you make changes, you're growing. And they have a saying that if we're not growing, we're dying. And we have to kind of take a good look before you make any form of changes. Make sure it's thought out. Sometimes a simple change can take you months, can take you a year, depends on what type of change it is. And that's why everyone is not in the same boat whenever it comes to change. I mean, this is what I'm not sure, Justin, if you can kind of see the do. Justin.
Yeah, I was going to comment on that in a
This new
second.
do?
Making
Okay,
changes
well,
right now.
this this new do was like a 5-month process to kind of do this. And I said, you know what? So what? So be it. You know what? Let me try this change. I'm gonna go for it. So I went ahead. I'm like, you know what? Go ahead and shoot for it. What's the best can do? It doesn't come out right. You don't like it, and you just loose it out. So that change for me was a 4-month type of change. And now I still got to make this change grow on me. But you know what? When I started looking at the habits and what it takes to go through changes, I'm like, look at this. A simple thing, a simple hairdo was a process. So whenever you're looking at change, you have to realize that positive changes are good. Negative changes are bad, as we know. But you can't listen to what others are saying when you're making changes. Say, for instance, you're changing your environment. You're hanging out in a certain type of crowd that within you that crowd is not good because you're getting in trouble, or it's not growing you anywhere. You're not going anywhere with it. And the moment you decide to change and start going into people, going around individuals that you can grow with, in that you are bougie, you're acting different. Why you think you're better than me, or you think you're better than us, and you go you doing backwards. You start thinking, you know what, maybe I'm not doing the right thing. Maybe I need to continue going in this direction, when you know within you that the change that you're making, it's for the better. So just always remember this, where you're going, and always remember the steps. But Justin, I think, when you started looking at the adult, I would never look at anyone and say it's easy, because fitness, health, make that change, and it becomes a huge task when for you and I, we look at it like, what do you mean you can't stop drinking soda? Just it up. It's easy. Walk away from it. But when you start looking at the whole structure, that someone been doing this thing, drinking soda for how long, and we're looking at them saying, by the way, can't you just stop drinking soda? So it's not an easy thing, but I hope that this hangout will give you some some form of insight as far as how you can go about making changes.
Yeah, that's a great point, and it's it's so true. I can remember when, I used to drink a lot of different drinks, sodas, like vitamin waters, all kinds of Gatorade, and now it's like it's so odd for me to really, I mean, water's like 90-95% of anything I drink. So it's kind of like, it seems so bizarre now, but that's exactly what happens when you make a change, and the further you get away from it, it's so normal. And that's the goal, right? We're creating a pattern where, you know, I'm speaking for myself, and I'm probably, I think Rob, you're the same way, where, you know, you go about your day, you're probably drinking water, you're drinking not a whole lot else, and it's just so normal, and it's just so automatic, and it might not necessarily have always been that way, right?
That's true.
Yeah.
Yep.
So and that's funny. We bring up the I want to talk a little bit about diet changes, because I think it's a good representation of a lot of changes where, there's all kinds of different things out there now, but what a lot of people do is, there's like the 3-day cleanse or the week cleanse and things like that, where say someone's just drinking juices, right? Like vegetable fruit juices, and they're doing this sort of like this 7-day just juice diet, right, or just juice cleanse. And what can happen, I feel like, is people start on it and they hear all the good positives of how great it's going to be, of how it's going to clean their system out, how it's going to jumpstart them into a new diet, and everything they're imagining is going to come true. And then day 2, day 3, day 4, they get hit with this like uncomfortable feeling, like, oh my God, I feel awful right now, I feel sick. And a lot of people stop thinking, oh well, that didn't work for me, like vegetables are bad or something. But it's the process of change that catches up with you, where you're in the diet sense, your body's going through a lot of changes. It's detoxifying, it's being introduced a lot of times to new foods, everything about the chemistry of your body is changing rapidly because you've taken this on. And a lot of times people don't wait it out to see the result afterwards. And I think that's a kind of like a great representation of a lot of different changes you can make, because it's the whole digging or mining for gold analogy, where someone stops right before they get to the gold because they just went so far without any results, and then you just turn back. And that's exactly what happens on a subconscious level when it comes to setting new habits. And it can be very, very challenging, and sometimes it takes more than your conscious awareness to change a habit. Sometimes you have to resort to subconscious mindset shifts. But just on a conscious level, when you create a new habit, you have to stick with it for as long as it takes, and you just have to have no expectation of how long it's going to take. Obviously, it's good to have an idea, but a lot of times the incremental change is what you don't see, right? So things can be changing, and it can be very, very slow. And that's why the most successful people in the world have a lot of faith in what they're doing, because they're not going to stop for anything, and they're going to keep moving with it. And the change that they want to make permanent is going to be inevitable at that point. So those are some definitely some important points, I think. And yeah, Rob,
That's a
I'd love
great
to
point.
hear exactly what you have to say, especially about the diet stuff, because I know that
That's a
you have
great
the fitness side of things as well.
Well, the thing is that I know sometimes when we make change, we're looking for results before the change even go in the process. But whenever, I mean, both of us, I mean, Justin and myself, we both deal with things on a level where it's called a circle of life, where you probably, take a look at this and wonder to yourself, how does this all come into play? The circle of life, it comes with, with spirituality, it comes with the type of foods we eat, it comes with your career, it comes with your relationship, those type of things that is included in the circle of life. So one couple of things that I want to talk to you about is, one is two type of changes that I like to deal with. Is one is spiritual change, and one is the regular change. The regular change is when you're going to just make a decision on your own, and then you go ahead on your own and you fail. As what Justin was saying, doing it on your own, doing it by yourself, is never the right way to go. You always have to find yourself some form of body that you can talk with about the changes you're going to make. As I said before, it's like even just this simple hairdo change, believe it or not, there's a huge conversation on it just to do this, because that's the type of person I am. I feel if it's something that I was uncomfortable with, I need to talk to someone about it to go through the changes. Then I also posted on Facebook and I asked a question today like, hey, I decided to make a change and I make a hairdo change. What do you like? You dislike or you like? Which one do you like? I'm okay with whatever way. If you want to tell me, you know what, it's not you, go right ahead. I'm okay with it. So I put those questions out there because I wanted to know what other people approach towards it. So now on the spiritual change, I would definitely do this. Ask the man above. If you're not spiritually grounded, you need to be spiritually grounded. And you want to ask the man above, I'm going to make this change, and I want you to give me guidance and lead the way towards this change I'm about to make, especially when we're going to make changes of jobs, changes in career, changes in finances. Those changes sometimes can be humongous, and it can make you or break you. Say, for example, if you were with a company for, say, 30 years, and you decide you're going to leave this company to start a new company, you want to ask God for guidance and ask Him for for vision, ask him for clarity towards that change. Don't try to go out there and do it alone. One thing to you always remember that change is good. And the reason why change is good, it's open up doors for new opportunities. Okay? Change is good because it also gives you a way to grow within whatever you're trying to grow within. It gives you new horizon. It gives you new vision, new clarity. So whenever you see changes coming your way, I know it's difficult, but take it and run with it. I give you another example. A change came my way quite a few times, and I used to get aggravated about it. And I'm like, wait a minute, dear Father, if I trust and believe in you, you let me know if this is the right thing or not. And you know what? A few days later, I actually went and I used the restroom, and I put my hand on the door lock, and a word just said to me, Rob, what are you worried about? Look at where you at right now. You don't have to worry about A, B, C, D, E, F, G, while the other person has to worry about that. You're still doing great. What are you worried about? And you know what? I shook my shoulder and said, you know what? That's a great point. Don't worry about that. Change is good. Then another example I want to use again. I had another situation here, came aboard, and I was called in to say, okay, such and such is going to change. And I was so ragged up about it. Oh my goodness, I can't believe this is happening. But guess what happened to that change when it came? I actually end up in the positive. My life has changed where it's for the greater good, because I never looked back and said, I am not going to move forward with the change. I went ahead with it head on, and you know what? It was a great thing. So when you run into a fact where change come your way, don't get so broken about it. Don't get, teary-eyed. Don't get upset, because if you're a believer, and this is the spiritual change piece now, if you're a believer, let the man above lead and run with the change, because you're going to look back at it at the end result and says, I am so happy I made this change, and look where I'm at today. Justin, another thing too, I'm just sharing these examples of change because I think it's very powerful. I told you about that move I was making from the old place to the new place, and it was going to be a significant more amount per month. But here's what happened with that change when I make it. I looked back the other day, and guess what the light bill was? When I was at the other place, light used to be $300-400 a month. But with the change I made, I went out with the change, my light bill was only $92.
Awesome.
So right away, I'm looking like I went ahead, made the change, but here's what I didn't look back at the change was. That place is an older place, so it sucks a lot of electricity. This place is a newer place. It sucks. It doesn't suck a lot of electricity, so I didn't have to pay that much for light. So the change actually put me into the positive instead of in the negative. So sometimes we have to always rely on someone else. If you have a stronger faith above, obviously, I hope you do. You want to actually put that in his hand and say, I'm going to make these changes. I know it's going to be a great thing, and move forward with it. Well, back to you, Justin.
Yeah, those are great points, for sure. And I want to just comment a little bit on. It's great on the spiritual change. I like how you talk about being spiritually grounded, because it is so important. And if we can, another thing is, if I think a lot of times when it comes to making a change, it's the initial starting point is huge for people too, because I've heard people tell me before, I wish I had the courage to do this. I would love to do that, but I just, it's sometimes I don't even think it's really about self-confidence. I think it's more about thinking, what am I losing from doing this? And it's a huge part of people is worried about what you're going to lose when you do something different, when something changes, right? And the whole light of change is good. A lot of times what we think we're sacrificing initially is really nothing at all in the big picture when we get to where we get. When we actually find out what the new life or the new picture looks like, where we look back and we're like, wow, that was just crazy that I was thinking about what I was sacrificing. Like I'm sure I'm sure you can relate to this, Rob, when it just comes to like food in itself. It's like you know, I can't believe I I was worried about missing the Mountain Dew or whatever. I don't know, whatever it is, but that's how I found a lot of things that I've changed in my life over the last couple of years is that there's a lot of things you really think you're going to miss, and you look back and you're just like, well, you know, I went through that and that was good, and I've evolved, and you know, it doesn't make you sad for what you missed. You just accept it as part of the process. And there's going to be, you know, maybe 2 years from now, I'll look back at where I'm at right now and just be like, oh man, like, you know, and just hope. I mean, that's the goal, right? It's to evolve and grow and have massive growth for those of us who are want to really achieve a lot in this life and impact a lot of lives. So with that said, I do want to go over before we head out and before we get Rob's final thoughts here. I do want to talk a little bit about the subconscious and what it means if someone is to really go that route and see and dive into it and see exactly what's going on. And the best way that I can simply like break this down is that on a subconscious level, there's this idea of being either conscious with what you're thinking and your decision making processes, or there's unconscious. And when I refer to habits being programs, that's the subconscious part of it. So there are, you know, 80-90% of what we do throughout the day, we're not actually thinking and deciding in the moment. We're automatically doing it, or else we'd probably drive ourselves crazy thinking for that much of the day. But these are things like if you go on to Facebook and all of a sudden you're looking at the news feed, and then like 15 minutes later you're like, what just happened? You just snapped into some pattern that you're running. You're driving your car down the highway. 30 minutes later you went from work to your house and you're home, and you're like, well, you know, I don't even remember getting here. You knew the route home and you took it, and you've done it so many times that it's just an automatic process. So this is so important when you're creating a habit, because you're making a change and you're changing what's already normal for you. There are going to be points where you're automatically doing something that is going to be something you don't want to do, because it's a recurring program in your mind that you need to interrupt. So the way to interrupt a pattern like that is when it starts to happen, you just need to keep in mind, be aware that you need to identify the beginning of the pattern and think about where you are, what sort of external stimuli, anything around you that's triggering this pattern, and just start to become aware of why you start to do a certain action. What are you doing automatically, and why does the process start? And once you can do that, you can start to interrupt patterns before you start running the program that's going to lead you into the habit that you've had up until the point. And then you can start to take that and start to create a new pattern for that particular, you know, the stimuli or whatever triggers that program. So we can start to rewrite our programs, and that's one way you can kind of subtly access your subconscious, and it starts to align, you know, what you want consciously, what change you're making with how your mind is actually running. So that's just a very like brief descriptor of how to interrupt a pattern like that. And I just want to go over that, and I'm going to throw it over to you, Rob. I think we've got maybe about 2 or 3 minutes left. So yeah, go ahead, brother.
Yeah, man, that's a great point. Very, very good point. I mean, and you know, a couple of things I want to add to that is thoughts. You know, your thoughts can overpower whatever your decision you're making. So if you're thinking negative thinking towards your change, you're going to get a negative response. If you're thinking positive thinking towards your change, you're going to get a positive response. So go in it thinking positive. And a couple steps I want to go over with, you know, like if you're trying to make a change within lifestyle change. Say, for instance, I'm using myself, for example. I decided that I wanted to become a vegan. I didn't just dive right in right away and just gave up meat and dairy and just went right at it. I started an elimination process. So if you're going to make a change within life where it's a big change, don't just jump and take it all on at once. You're right. If it's small change, go right ahead, jump in. But if it's a big change, like you're going to go vegan, I had to start with a process where I eliminated eggs. Then I went ahead and eliminated regular milk. Then you go ahead and I eliminated yogurt. Then I started, but then eliminating those things, I started adding in the things with the more healthier, to live that more healthier lifestyle. Then I went ahead and I started eliminating meat. But here's what happened now whenever you're going to make a change. You have to start thinking the why behind the change. What's going to be your benefit? What you're going to get out of this change? Because when you think of the why and what you're going to get out of the change and what others going to get out of the change when you make that change, you're so gun-ho and so uproar about making that change that you will just keep running and you will never look back. So when I decided I'm going to become a vegan and I start making those changes, I started thinking about my family. I started thinking about being around for my loved ones. The energy that I felt from started eliminating the meat, eliminating the dairy, I can't even look back. You can put a chicken in front of me, and believe it or not, I mean, coming from Jamaica where we love jerk chicken, we love escovitch fish, we love all those things. So for me to give that up, it wasn't an easy process. But the way I felt when I started doing the elimination process, I knew it was a good change. So to end this, I just want to tell you that whenever you're looking at change, just think of the why, think of the benefit, think of the opportunities that you're going to get from the change. Think of the new horizon, the new adventure. Think of the, whoever lives you're going to impact with the change. And little by little, started going into it, little by little, and then eventually you'll just be there. All right, so I just want to thank you so much for stopping by, hanging out with us, and back to you, Justin.
Awesome stuff, Rob. And it's great. It's great that just a few weeks ago we had a comment, a hangout on when to say no and how that works. And one of the points we made in that was that if you can dictate, if you're the one dictating the proposal, right? So if people can be constantly asking you, take on this project, take on that project, and you have to sort of gauge what you should say yes to, what you should say no to, and then when it comes to, if you can dictate everything, right, you can dictate your zone of influence, you can dictate the support systems around you, and that helps so much as well with making a change. And all this stuff kind of interrelates that we talk about. And when it comes down to it, creating a change that is worthwhile is going to be a lifestyle change, like 100 times out of 100. So with that said, we do these Tuesday night Real Talks every single Tuesday, 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern time. And before we go, Rob, how can people find you if they want to connect with you, brother?
You can find me at www.shepherdfit.info, and I would love for you to just stop by, opt in, that we can actually send you guys emails, and when we're doing these hangouts, that you guys can join right in, because you want to, it's great to catch it live, because you can also, opt in. We can also have you live on the panel. So again, you can find me at shepherdfit.info, and you can also find me at Facebook at it's Rob Shepherd 72, and it's www.facebook.com Rob Shepherd 72.
Awesome, Rob. Awesome. So again, I'm Justin Messina. You can find me at justin-messina.com, on social media at JMessLife. And with that said, we'll see you next Tuesday. And like we say at the end of every Real Talk Tuesday, live Vision Fit. We're out.